Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Scarlet Fu. We're counting you down to the closing bell, and here to help take us beyond the bell, it's a global simulcast with our friends Madison Mills and Carol Escargot Massar. Welcome to our audiences across Bloomberg Television, Radio, Originals, and of course those folks streaming on YouTube. Pretty wild day here, Carol.
Yeah, absolutely. Bouncing around, certainly on the equity side of things, we're off our lows, but man, just to see the moves that we saw in treasuries, they are off their highs as well. But you know, I was thinking about when treasury yields go up, what does it mean for kind of the banking stocks? Is it good? Is it bad? And I'm looking at the KBW Bank Index, guys, and it's a laggard. It's down about 1.5%. So, you know, whether or not the Fed overdoes it with these higher rates and what kind of a slowdown maybe we ultimately get in the economy, maybe that explains some of the trade here.
Yeah, it's definitely the thing that's dragging on the day, these jobs numbers from this morning. But maybe we're seeing the market look ahead to those non-farm payrolls tomorrow, always looking for something optimistic to trade on here, but still feels like not the best day if you're a trader today, Scar.
Yeah, I was looking at volume, and volume for most of the morning was higher than anticipated or higher than the 10-day average, at least in the S&P 500. But then at about midday, it switches. And that's around the same time, Romaine, that we started to see the indexes come off their lows and for yields to come off their highs.
Yeah, a lot of programmatic trading here, and I do think it's interesting because we talk about, was that a reaction to the actual data itself, meaning the initial sell-off, or was it a reaction to kind of the second order effect, was that rise in yields, and kind of whether that negative correlation was the real driver behind it here. I guess we're going to find out again tomorrow morning when we do get that official jobs report, 8:30 a.m. Washington time. Meanwhile, at roughly about 4 p.m. New York time, we do get the closing bells here for equity markets. The clapping begins, but not a whole lot to cheer about. A Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 300 points, or about 1% on the day. The S&P down 35 points, or 0.8%. Similar decline on a percentage basis for the NASDAQ Composite and the Russell 2000. That was your primary laggard here on the day, down by about 31 points, or 1.6%.
All right, Romaine, and digging a little bit deeper into the S&P 500, you know, broad-based selling, we talked about this a little bit earlier, 417 names in the S&P 500 losing some ground today, 83 to the upside, and we're looking at 3 unchanged. With the VIX, you guys, Maddie, of just above 15, so moving up more than a point here.
Yeah, and then if we take a look over at the sectors here, S&P 500 Energy Index, really the biggest laggard on the day, down a little over 2% on the close. That's after Exxon pre-issuing some negative guidance ahead of their 2Q earnings, saying that there's going to be a hit of about $4 billion there. But still looking at tech leading the way, even though we've got a sea of red here, still seeing a little bit of positivity when it comes to the tech trade, Scar.
All right. Actually, I'm going to pick it up for you and do, I think, a little bit of some of the individual gainers.
You found some.
It wasn't easy. And I was like, nah, Romaine's going to be like, who cares about that one? And then I'm going to be like stuck. Microsoft, though. I did want to do that one.
We do care about that one.
We do care about that always, right? And I believe, I got to just pull up the Dow here, guys. I think it was, at least earlier, well, one of 2 gainers in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, Microsoft and Apple, the only 2 gainers today. Microsoft up about 0.9% here. What I thought was interesting, Morgan Stanley out, naming Microsoft its top pick among large cap software companies, saying that it is the best placed in the sector to benefit from the growth of AI. The analyst over there, the analyst team, saying AI-driven gains can propel Microsoft to join Apple in the $3 trillion market cap club. New price target of $415 from $335. The second highest target on the Bloomberg. Microsoft closing at $341 and change. All right, Keurig, Dr. Pepper, Romaine, you did talk about this, and this was, we did see it be a top gainer earlier in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. Morgan Stanley upgrading it to overweight from equal weight, noting the stock's compelling valuation. They've got a price target keeping it at $36 a share. The stock closing at $32.20 a share. And then Sweetgreen, this one was on a bit of a tear, up about 15.5%. B of A raising the salad chain to buy from neutral.
Did you see why they raised that, though?
They talked about increasing foot traffic and the prospect that same-store sales growth will see continued momentum and plans to automate operations.
Right, but underlying all that, Carol, was the analyst says that we're apparently all going back to the office now.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't see that. See,
Yeah,
Well,
you have
we're
to
already
actually
here,
you have to
so-
read, Carol. You know, you go past the headline there.
devil's in the details, isn't
Yeah,
there,
it's in
Mr.
the
Bostick? All right. We're going to move along here.
All right, let me fill you in on the decliners here. And Maddie mentioned ExxonMobil falling the most in 2 months today. And of course, triggering a decline across the energy sector. 22 out of 23 big cap energy stocks in the red on the day on that profit warning. Uber, the ride-sharing company, is seeking to block a New York City rule on minimum wage for app-based food delivery workers that's set to go into effect on July 12th. So Uber Eats is going to team up with its rivals, DoorDash and Grubhub, in a bid to halt this rule. That stock off by more than 3.5%. And Carol, you mentioned the banks and higher rates. KRE is the ETF that tracks regional banks, and it's down 1.5%, of course, as bond yields increase.
Well, let's talk about those bond yields, because that really was the story, at least in the early part of the trading session here. You had that 10-year yield at one point on the day, jumping what was it, about 15 basis points or so. You had 17 basis point move on that 2-year yield, and even the 5-year and the belly had moved higher. Now, you did see some moderation as you got closer to the end of the session. Your 2-year yield only up about 5 basis points from where it was yesterday. The 10-year yield up about 10 basis points. Put that all together, and you get a little bit of a flattening of the yield curve on this day. But I think the reaction that you saw there, pretty much a reaction to about 4 different data points on the labor market this morning, maybe could be a preview of some of the reaction, the knee-jerk reaction that we get tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. New York time, with the release of that monthly jobs report.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Romaine. Even though we're seeing a little bit of red today, we know that we've had record strength in the S&P 500 so far this year. And historically, strength leads to more strength in the second half of the year. Having said that, it's a question of whether or not concerns about the Fed's next moves and a potential global economic slowdown are going to thwart that rally moving forward in the second half of the year, particularly as technicals do suggest that the S&P is starting to near that overbought territory.
Yeah, it's been overbought for a while, and I guess it could stay overbought as well if economic data comes in. I mean, although it's coming in better than expected, for today, the good economic news is bad for markets. I look at the economic surprise index; it just continues to.
Can I just say something though, too? I mean, because I know we sort of get into wonky looking at this data stuff too. But I mean, I was just traveling. Carol was traveling with me too, and I mean, you go through the airports, you go to these restaurants and all these other and the hotels, and I mean, they are just bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
So, and I know that's just one part of the economy. I know it's not everything here, but it just sort of gives you a sense here of the challenge that the Fed has. There's an economy that is just booming right now in certain pockets, and I'm not sure they care whether the Fed goes to 5 or 5.5%.
or 6% for that matter.
Right. It doesn't seem like it's stopping people from traveling. I feel like every plane we get on, you're right, the airports were crowded. And I feel like meals and things, they're not inexpensive. Like, I still feel like things are high. I am really curious.
I know. Can I just tell you, I treated Carol to dinner. She ordered 2 things of
wow.
escargot, caviar, champagne. She had the whole 9 yards.
I did not do that.
I just feel like I doubt this
escargot.
story. Can I get a
I
fact
even
check?
shared my escargot, I believe.
Was there a third-party witness at the dinner?
There was. I might be
I did
exaggerating
ask if you
a little
wanted
bit,
to split it, you know.
But it goes back to that idea of whether we feel good, confident about the economy or not. We spend. Americans spend. It's just a matter of what we spend on, what we're spending.
But that's a good point, Scarlett. But it gets back to that data, right? I mean, I don't know who said it, but remember there was some politician years ago who said, the economy is a feeling. Right? I mean, and if people, if people feel good about things, they'll spend. If they feel bad about things, it really isn't necessarily about the numbers, what is in the bank account or what the economic data says. It's just kind of how they feel. And at least for right now, we feel a lot of people seem to be confident in this country.
Yeah.
Romaine, you know that there's a word for this that we use on the internet these days. It's called vibe session. Have you heard about this?
I was told actually not to use the word vibes. My producer,
Are you serious?
who's in my ear,
Vibe
once
session?
chastised me.
Oh, let's use
using
the old school
vibes.
word for vibe. Sentiment.
Well, it's my first vibe mention of the day, so I feel like maybe I can get
Well,
away
she'll
with
let
it
you do it.
since I'm filling in.
Can we get a vibe go on the terminal? One thing I will be watching is
vibes.
what we see in terms of average hourly earnings. Like,
Yes.
are we starting to see that slow down? Because that certainly plays into costs at companies, right, Scarlett? It also says how much people have in their wallet, essentially, to spend.
Or hours
keep
worked
on
too,
spending.
because that's
And
another
hours
way
worked.
of people,
Yes.
of companies not letting go of workers, but just reducing how much availability they offer the workers.
And
So
underemployment,
I'm vibing
Scarlett,
now.
which you...
Yeah.
What, Romaine? What?
he's vibing.
He's vibing.
Can I just tell you, when En Vogue was up on the stage, I saw somebody vibing.
Oh, see, these are the things we don't hear about.
Well,
We
Was I
didn't know
not
this.
supposed to say anything?
I'm just buttoned up. No, it was a great time, and it really does get to all. And we should mention, I mean, we did the Boston Pops. For those viewers who don't know, Carol and I hosted the Boston Pops Fireworks Spectacular. You had In Vogue, you mentioned Low Cash, Mandy Gonzalez. It really was a great time, and it's actually wonderful that Bloomberg sponsors that event along with Morgan Stanley, and really just appreciate all the people who came out for that, and of course anyone at home who watched it.
And the weather gods.
And the weather, yeah, and Mother Nature respects the Boston Pops Fireworks Spectacular because she made sure it stopped raining right before show.
Mother Nature respects
And
you,
Carol did a
Romaine.
fantastic job. She looked great. She had
Carol's
this little
hair looked
red
amazing.
jumpsuit thing. She couldn't use the bathroom for 3 hours, but it worked.
And Romaine had red socks. He did fairly well too as well. Anyway, we thank all of our Bloomberg colleagues who made it possible
absolutely.
for us.
Yep.
All right, I guess that's a wrap. So tomorrow will be about jobs. We won't talk escargot and we won't talk anything else. I promise. No, maybe a little bit.
I don't know.
We'll be
Is Matt
vibing.
back tomorrow?
We'll be vibing into Friday.
There you go.
All right, that's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage, radio, TV, Bloomberg Originals, and of course YouTube. Catch us again tomorrow, everybody.